Greetings, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube. I'm Lewis Cipher, and this is the Devil's Advocate Debate Club. If I'm a little bit less topical than I'd prefer to be, it's because I've had a bit of an emotional morning, but I definitely want to talk about the Markiplier incident while it's still fresh. And this is going to be a little bit of a difference from my prior episodes of In Defense of the Indefensible, for anyone who's bothered to watch him. In those episodes, I take someone who much of society considers to be indefensible and do my best to paint them in a positive light. This is more of a company that some people view positively and others negatively, but basically everyone views negatively when it comes to the Markiplier situation. Now, for anyone who's not aware of what's going on, YouTube has, not just YouTube, Google and YouTube, have recently banned a bunch of people who were fans of Markiplier. He's one of the 100 most successful, one of the 100 most viewed people on YouTube, and during a live stream he had asked people to vote by posting either a red or green heart on some innocuous game, on what path he would take in a video game, I believe it was. Now, YouTube not only banned these accounts, they actually banned the Google accounts, not just the YouTube accounts of everyone involved, causing people very potentially, and there have been reports of, to lose 100-hour work and school projects. I mean, there are people who store very, very important things on their Google account, and I've been looking through the terms of service. I can't find anywhere in Google's terms of service that would suggest that something that was a bannable offense on YouTube would then automatically extend to your entire Google account. Especially not something that, as far as I can tell looking through YouTube's terms of service, wasn't a violation to begin with. They were accused of spamming hearts, but you only had to have posted one in order to be banned. This very well may have been an algorithm problem, but why would their algorithm be designed to stop people from posting a single emoji? I mean, it would take, dozens or hundreds of people in a coordinated effort, the kind of thing which you could certainly review and punish after the fact in order to have any kind of impactable spam. And this absolutely wasn't spam. It's the problem with any sort of automated review process. Reviews for this kind of thing on social media absolutely must be done manually, or they will never be done fairly, as this and many other situations we've seen prove. So, hundreds, and from one report, potentially thousands or even tens of thousands, but at least hundreds and probably thousands of people have now lost not just their YouTube account, but their Google accounts for posting an emoji heart to vote on which direction a gaming channel, one of the most top 100 viewed, would go during a live stream. It sounds like I'm making this up because it's absolutely ridiculous. YouTube and Google have been called out at length on this for more than 24 hours now on Twitter, and I'm assuming on other social media, and have yet to issue anything of a real apology. They told Markiplier that they were looking into it, and then told him that the accounts had been restored, which was not the case. A, the accounts had not been restored, and B, many of the ones that were restored were then banned again, and were still up for requesting manual review, which means that they were automatically banned, and then automatically restored, and then automatically banned again, all three without any sort of manual reviewing process, as Google and YouTube lied out their teeth about this. And this is all just pretty public information online right now. So it got me to start thinking, because lots and lots of people were asking the question, why? And I know they're just asking, why do we deserve this? Stuff like that. The idea being to point out that clearly we don't. And as a community, I'm not saying that we do. We don't deserve this. But it did get me to start thinking, why would Google possibly do what they've done with YouTube? See, YouTube a profitable business when Google purchased them, at least as far as anyone could tell. Google, since purchasing them, has refused to release any of the profits for YouTube. So it's actually impossible for us to tell if it is still a profitable business, but it has been suggested by, well, ultimately speaking, one anonymous person reportedly inside the company. So, at least one person has said that Google has lost money on YouTube every year. The report actually said that they have roughly broke even and was reported as being losses, but hey, why split hairs? That being said, there are other analytical figures that show that Google should make money on YouTube based basically off of its viewership. So as viewership rises, they logically, for a number of reasons, which I can't explain but don't think I really need to go into here, should be making more money. And viewership of YouTube rose drastically for several years after Google bought it, until their recent algorithm change about a year ago, at which point it has plummeted as they have demonetized, banned, and suspended accounts for little to no reason, costing them, by at least my estimation, approximately $100 billion. Now, I come to that number because a couple of months after the algorithm change, it was estimated by analytical experts to have cost Google about, I think it was $76 billion, something like that. It was ridiculous because between Google, Netflix, and one other company, the three of them had lost more than like $120 billion, or it was more than $100 billion over basically a weekend due to new policy changes. So, given that we've seen lots more bans, suspensions, and demonetizations continuing to happen during that time frame, and I mean a lot more, I don't think it's unreasonable to say that Google has cost themselves $100 billion, the old Dr. Evil standard, in order to what? Why? Why is Google doing this? I mean, some of these are to try and keep things ad-friendly, but a lot of them can be traceably not that, to a degree. So why is Google targeting random creators at times, it seems, with things like this? Or, I mean, Markiplier is a gaming channel, and as far as I know, is basically, if not fully, monetized. He's the type of person you would want to keep around and whose fan base you would want to keep happy, just from a basic business sense. At first, I was only able to come up with two reasons. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not particularly a fan of conspiracy theories. I mean, I like reading about them and enjoy them, but, I'm not generally a fan of them for an actual theory as to what's going on. But given the amount of money that Google is losing, and given that in situations like this, I mean, with Markiplier, there aren't even people on the, far left calling out anything as far as I can tell. Everyone is against them. There's no one saying that YouTube and Google are doing a moral thing here. So if they're not doing what's morally or monetarily right for them, then why? Why would they do this? Well, two potential reasons. One is that Google is trying to kill YouTube, doing their best to destroy it as a business, to act like it never happened. The only reason really both of them come down to that. But one is that they're doing this to protect the mainstream media. Basically, cable news outlets have been losing an insane amount of viewership, and analytics show that most of it has been going straight to YouTube. So if Google kills YouTube off as a company, then, well, mainstream media will get that viewership back, and there's certainly ties between them and a lot of these corporations, and evidence that that might be what's happening. I mean, the recent algorithm change, one of the biggest things that it did was take viewership away from standard YouTube channels of people broadcasting themselves, and gave it back to the mainstream media, doing everything it can to forward Fox, CNN, and MSNBC. Especially Fox, but it really is all three. Now, the next reason is even more conspiratorial, which is that Google is based mostly out of China, and personally I don't actually think that China is looking to go to war or trade war with America or anything like that. But at the same time, they're doing a lot of human rights violations, the kinds of things that countries have in the past eventually had enough of, and as a world kind of stepped in to stop. If you don't know about what's happening to Muslim people in China right now, it really looks to be pretty similar with what was going on in German concentration camps, just short of the gas showers. And, they might just be building up to it. So if China is worried about a war with America and or the rest of the world, then one of the first things you want to do in a war is demoralize your opponent, right? So if you get enough people invested in something like YouTube, or potentially in other alphabet ventures as well, I'll have to look into other businesses, then you could, by creating strife on that platform and eventually basically killing it off, strike a blow to the moral of a lot of the Western world if you successfully were to destroy YouTube. I don't think that's what China's really doing, but those were the two reasons I could come up with. And both of them basically led me to believe that Google, for whatever reason, was doing their best to kill off YouTube. But that might not be the case. While it's just as conspiratorial and no more likely than the two scenarios I just listed, there is a third option. It's just a little bit more complicated, like any game of 4D chess. So, what's the message of hope here? What could YouTube or Google, what could Google possibly be doing with the YouTube that could be a positive for them, and while it's a negative at the time, potentially a positive for the future of the community, no matter how destructive it is right now? I spent a lot of time thinking about this. In fact, it kept me up 2 nights in a row. And, well, you've all heard the concept of the enemy of my enemy is my friend. I'm sure a lot of you have seen the movie The Watchmen, where at the end of the film, the anti-hero, the villain, the person who had been set up as the villain the whole film, shows that what he'd been really doing was creating a enemy for the whole world, something that would bring them together, a common enemy, so that the world would stop falling apart. And it worked. He only had to kill one of his closest friends in order to do it, and it's certainly an ends justify the means kind of story. But, and if you read the comics, and I forget if it was in the movie, there's even potential that he will have failed in the end. That was the goal, though. The goal was that no matter how evil what he was doing looked, in the end, it was for the good of everyone. So, why is YouTube losing money, or reportedly losing money? Why could YouTube be losing money with how many millions of people are on it and use it on a daily basis and the amount of advertising on it? Well, that advertising is where the money for the most part comes from. That's the key. Outside of investors and donations, that's basically how Google makes their money off of YouTube. Now, if they ever report YouTube's earnings, it'll be interesting to see how much of it they report as YouTube's earnings and how much of they report as directly Google ad space earnings. Because if they're not reporting any of their ad earnings as being from YouTube, even if the ads are on YouTube, because that's already a part of their business, technically speaking, YouTube would be a 100% loss, no matter how much money they were making on the odds or on the ads. So figures like that can be very deceitful, even if Google wasn't just hiding them entirely from the public anyway. But basically, Google needs advertising to stay on YouTube in order for it to survive. A while back, there was a thing called the adpocalypse, when PewDiePie, YouTube's, at the time, biggest and still, biggest, single, name, the guy everyone knows. He did a video that was considered by many to be offensive, and a lot of ad companies all at once pulled support from YouTube and, basically demanded that something be done about it, or else Google wouldn't be seeing any more money from them. Well, the reason why they did this is because a very vocal group who happens to be an extreme minority on YouTube, mostly people who actually kind of hate YouTube, and a lot of them have recently been calling it far-right, racist propaganda, and are doing what they can to hurt the site. So when they see an excuse to, call up an advertiser and say, hey, look at what's going on here, we don't like this, if you know what to say to the, right people at the right company, you can get just about anyone fired. And that's basically what these activists are doing. They're going to companies that advertise on Google, and despite the fact that they're an extreme minority and that the vast majority of people who actually view the ads and might be affected by them like YouTube, that's why they're there, this minority gets the ads canceled and pulled from YouTube's videos. Now, creators noticed, of course, that this hurts their bottom line when their channels get demonetized or when advertisers pull entirely from the site, but I don't think they really stopped to think how much it hurts Google's bottom line, especially when, with the, new algorithm doing things like demonetizing and banning entire channels. Well, demonetizing a channel means that ads aren't shown on it. That doesn't just mean that you don't make money when people watch your videos, just like when people use ad blockers. That means that Google and YouTube are not making money off of channels that they demonetize. This has some potentially dark implications I'll get to at the end with their new terms of service updates. However, demonetizing channels isn't in Google's best interest unless it's actually saving an advertiser who overall is worth more for them. And with the amount of channels being demonetized and, deranked since the new algorithm change where people just don't see them anymore, overall viewership since the algorithm change has plummeted, and Google's profits would have plummeted with them, even if they were already in the red. But the real problem here is that vocal minority activist group who are going after the advertisers in the first place. And within Google, there are lots of different ideologies. Google is a world-spanning corporation, and you can see at times that there are definitely conservative and liberal voices in it, the left and the right, even if most of what we see on the surface is the left. That is probably because of vocal activists who, in a lot of these big businesses, get what they want on at least a surface level, whether or not they have any effect on deeper policy. It would be in Google's best interest, and most businesses' best interest, for this group to shut up and to be removed. And this group sometimes has legitimately complaints. So I'm not saying that in all cases that they should, although in many cases I think the results are clear. However, Google really as a company can't come out and fight against these people because the mainstream media supports them, and there are too many people who just blindly believe the media. So if it reports, Google's far right and racist now, they'd lose a lot of users. And so what does Google do? Well, Google needs someone else to fight this battle for them. Google needs someone to rise up and tell the vocal minority of activists who've been targeting their advertisers, causing adpocalypse after adpocalypse, and forcing YouTube into making algorithm changes that aren't good for their business, to go away. It would be in the majority of people on YouTube's interest, as well as the interest of the companies YouTube and Google themselves, to get rid of these people, but Google can't fight that war. So what do? They can't come out and openly support the voices against this vocal minority. So what do? They create a situation so ridiculous that it finally angers the silent majority. They get people who aren't involved in politics or YouTube, who don't really care about Markiplier or his fans or the site or anything going on, to hate what's going on just because people are getting banned for emoji hearts. They do something so ridiculous. And I think there may have been several attempts at this in the past, if this is what they're doing, and it just never got enough people riled up and vocal enough against the group of activists who are causing the real problems for all of us, the creators, YouTube, and Google alike. So I'm not saying that what they're doing is right. I'm not saying it's justified. I'm not even saying that we should forgive them for it, because I'm not sure if I can. But we should recognize here that this can happen to any company, that YouTube was BitChute 10 years ago, and that if we don't make a stand against the root of the problem, against the people who are actually causing these issues, if we just fight them on the surface level and never dig deeper, then we're never going to solve them, no matter how much of a majority we have, no matter how much people think it's disgusting when things like this happen. You have to start speaking up. In the social media age, because everyone's capable of connecting with each other, there are people, especially people on Twitter, who think that everyone does, and that if an opinion's not popular on Twitter, it's because it's not popular in real life. However, there are wide groups of people and entire sections of the population who avoid Twitter like the plague, and who have some very strong opinions. It's, in a sense, the same people who... Well, I don't know. Anyway, though, I don't think that this is what's happening, but I do think that it is at least a possibility that Google is trying to create a common enemy of these advocates against the advertisers without outright coming out and saying it. I think they're trying to get the community, or that they could be trying to get the community, us, riled up enough that we'll start fighting back. And they realize that we'll start fighting back against them first. That the first strike, our first target, would be YouTube and Google. And they're not wrong, but they can weather that. Just like they can weather another couple of years of losses on YouTube if eventually the problem is dealt with. Creators start being able to upload and make something of themselves on the platform again, and basically it all comes back around to broadcast yourself, as opposed to broadcast whatever the corporate media thinks is acceptable today. So do I think it's likely that any of the three situations that I've described, that it's China trying to demoralize the West, that it's Google looking out for the cable news companies, or that it's Google trying to get us riled up against the activists? Do I think any of those three are likely? No. But I also haven't been able to come up with a better option. And at the same time, it doesn't really matter, because it highlights what the real issue is here. It highlights the problem that we all have, and that Google and YouTube will keep passing the bucket down to us until we eventually get mad enough to do something about it and throw it back in their faces. So that's why, at least for the foreseeable future, I will not yet be abandoning YouTube. I will continue to post my videos there, partially because they upload fastest there, and it's simply easiest for me. And even though I don't have backups for these videos and could lose my entire channel quite easily, I'm going to stick with them for a little bit longer and see how this plays out, as disgusted as I am, because even if it wasn't their intent, I think we could see positive action from the community that could start helping to make a change. And I want to be a part of that rather than to run from it. But it's dangerous staying on this site. We now know that you can lose your Google account as well as just your YouTube account. So if you are going to continue using YouTube, make sure that you don't have anything backed up only on your Google account that's important to you. Back it up somewhere else before you go watch another video on YouTube, or at least before you post a comment, because who knows what's enough these days. And that brings me around from the hope back to the dark side. See, YouTube has recently announced a change in their terms of service, specifically starting on the 10th. Basically anything, as far as some people have been putting it, will be a bannable offense. Now, what it really says is that if you're not commercially viable, so if you're not making them money, on the other hand, in other words, you'll potentially be banned, or you can be banned just for not making them money. Now, there's a certain argument that, yeah, certain small channels who don't have very many viewers could be deleted for not making money, even if they're monetized or have ads on them, because, you know, they're not making enough to cover their server space. But I don't think that's who this is targeting. I think that it's at least possible that this could very easily be a reason to sweepingly ban every channel that's been demonetized. See, if you've been demonetized, you're not making Google or YouTube any money. And if you're not making YouTube any money, you're not economically viable for them, and that is now a bannable offense as of the 10th. So if we see sweeping bans of demonetized channels coming in December, I'll leave and I won't be back. We'll build a new site without you, and you and your entire company can go and die. This is, as far as I am concerned, your last chance, YouTube, and for the most part, you as well, Google. I will be installing an ad blocker, and for the foreseeable future, using it and not allowing monetization to go through to Google and YouTube, because I cannot support what they're currently doing. But if they're playing 4D chess and looking to protect the future of the community, I can at least see a path towards something positive in the future, whether or not it was actually worth it. But hey, that's just my opinion. Let me know what you think in the